Hi, I'm Stephen Kesting. It's my friend and training partner, Alex Cast. And today, the dreaded ear clap. Somebody asked me about this the other day. They wanted to know if this would actually work. And you do see this. You've heard about it, of course, the dreaded double ear clap.
40 years of martial arts training, how can one avoid it?
Yeah, how many times have you actually heard of it working anecdotally ever? Has it ever worked?
That's a good question. I have not. And I'd imagine if it did work, those that have had it done on them wouldn't hear it either.
If an ear gets clapped in the forest, does anyone hear it? I can think of two people that I've heard of. I think Genki Sudo had his eardrum ruptured in pancrase. Mm-hmm. I could be wrong about the details, but I think he did have an eardrum ruptured. A guy I know, I'm not sure, I'm at liberty to share his name, had it ruptured in pancrase as well. This back when they could do MMA with open hands and slap the head. I believe when Enson Inoue fought Igor Vachachin, he also had an eardrum ruptured. Now, Vachachin did a lot of this like slapping and then the big right hand. I don't know if it was a slap or a punch. I've also heard of it happening in boxing, like people sparring. Exactly. And the big, soft glove landing right on the ear. So, eardrums can rupture. For sure they can rupture. It's a medical condition. If you look up ruptured eardrum or perforated eardrum, it happens, it tears, usually it heals. It's very painful. It's connected to your balance center, so it can be off-putting. But this idea that magically, Captain Kirk versus the Gorn. The Gorn has him in a bear hug. The Gorn has great big teeth. The Gorn takes about 15 seconds to decide to bite him. And in the time, Captain Kirk's pushing here, and he claps his ear holes, and the Gorn is part of it. It's all downhill from there. So, if we throw out the Star Trek reference, it can happen. Certainly clubbing somebody in the area of the ear is a good thing. If I just take my generalized fist and I swing and I hit Alex here, that's pretty close to a couple of knockout areas that we've talked about in another video. It's pretty close to the jaw, it's pretty close to the knockout point halfway down the sternocleidomastoid, it's pretty close to the balance centers, and you're clubbing somebody in the head. This is a good thing. As for rupturing the eardrum, good luck with that. I mean, you see some of the old books, the Applegate, Fairbairn books, Kill or Be Killed, that sort of thing, 1940s era, where they're talking about making two cupped hands to percussively drive the air into the ear. Well, if you find somebody whose ear forms the exact other half of your hand, then that might work. But generally, playing around with it, a flat hand works just as well. You just want to form a seal on that ear. Also, I mean, instead of slapping somebody on the ear, you could consider the Bas Rutten wrist club on the side of the face, right? Where you're bending back and just hitting with a wrist bone here, as opposed to slapping him on the ear and hoping for this magical eardrum rupture. Why not just bend your hand back and club him and remove his jaw? That's a pretty proven technique. You know lots of people who've had their jaws dislocated or fractured. Oh yeah. I do. We've all seen 1,000 knockouts from somebody getting punched in the jaw, kicked in the jaw, clubbed in the jaw with a wrist. Those things are real. Those are high percentage. This whole eardrum rupture business, or the dreaded double eardrum rupture, not saying it's impossible, but in a combined, oh my God, almost 80 years of martial arts training, we can only think of a handful of examples. A handful of examples where it actually worked. UFC 5, Ken Shamrock versus Royce Gracie, the super fight. Basically, they spent about half an hour with Royce holding Ken in the guard and clubbing him in the ear with this in the back of the head here. You think if he'd won it, if he'd been able to rupture Ken's eardrum, he would have? I'm pretty sure he would have. No eardrums were ruptured in that fight. It's a really hard thing to do. It's not something you should rely on. Yes, it can happen. No, don't count on it. Don't count on anything. Even the mythical kick in the balls doesn't work every time. So, and there's lots of evidence behind kicking somebody in the balls. Much, much less evidence for clapping in the ear. That being said, clubbing somebody, punching somebody, kicking somebody in the general vicinity of the ear, that's a good thing.